boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. A back-and-forth exchange between lightweight champions Carolyn Dubois and Terry Harper that Carolyn seems to have initiated ahead of what is her MVP debut. She said 12, 13, 14 weeks, it doesn't matter. I start camp early, I stay ready, so I don't have to get ready. I advise you do the same, Terry Harper. You'll be getting news soon. To which Terry responded, I'm irrelevant and slithering my way out of it, yet I've been waiting for the contract since July. Fortunately, you've signed with MVP, so there's no running for you now. Rude and classless.
I agree with Terry. That's how Carolyn Dubois has been. Listen, I don't expect her to make nice with her contemporaries and her rivals and her fellow champions, but on more than one occasion, Carolyn has referred to Terry as being irrelevant. So it's a bit odd that you would spend this much time pursuing a fight with what you described as an irrelevant fighter.
She's so irrelevant, why do you want to fight her so bad? Why didn't you have the energy for Beatrice when she was a champion that you seemed to keep for Terry? I thought Terry was irrelevant.
Carolyn responded, I've signed to MVP to take your belt, and that's exactly what I expect to do. You are irrelevant. Go get in the gym and shake some ass. OnlyFans is the only one paying your bills at the moment. Not my problem. To which Terry responded, thanks for the plug. If you want to pay my bills, come join my OnlyFans. Making reference to Terry Harper spicing things up and showcasing that fabulous ass and thighs of hers.
She's got one of the most well-formed asses in all of women's boxing, and there's no shame in that. So I have a deep veneration for Terry Harper, and it's not just because she has a great ass. It's because she got it out of the mud. She got it the hard way. She doesn't come from some deep amateur background like Carolyn Dubois. You know those standout amateurs? They get the red carpet rolled out for them. Out of the amateurs and into the pros, they're offered lucrative contracts right away. Whereas
Carolyn Dubois was, out of the amateurs and into the pros, she was already fighting on a major platform. And that was not the case for Terry. People tend to forget that she wasn't always with Matchroom. I believe that Terry Harper, like Fabio Wortley, started out on the white-collar circuit, had a few white-collar fights before going pro, so she doesn't have the amateur background of a Carolyn Dubois, of a Lauren Price. Hence, Terry Harper becoming a 3-weight world champion in spite of this is impressive.
I think it's admirable, but I also think that's why Carolyn is going after her, because to Carolyn, Terry Harper is low-hanging fruit. And before it was Terry, it was Rhiannon Dixon she was going after. What do Terry and Rhiannon have in common?
They're both cute white girls?
Terry and Rhiannon have no amateur background. Rhiannon Dixon, like Terry Harper, doesn't come from some deep amateur background. I believe that she also started out in white collar, and it's for this reason I think Carolyn prefers to fight them more than she ever wanted to unify titles with Beatrice Ferreira, who was quite vocal in calling her out. Beatrice, like Carolyn, is an Olympian.
Now, Beatrice lost her title in her last fight, getting knocked out by Elif Turan.
But do you think for a second that Carolyn Dubois wants to fight Elif Turan? Wants to fight the fighter that she's been running from? No, she rather chase irrelevant Terry, like she was chasing Rhiannon Dixon, what gives off the impression that Carolyn is a coward.
She's a low-character kind of girl, low-character kind of person. You're only after Terry. You only have a hard-on for Terry because you view it as easy.
They like to say that Carolyn Dubois is the heir apparent to women's boxing and she will become the face of it, but not with that attitude. That's not how Katie Taylor got so much attention on the sport. Katie deliberately went after the difficult opponents, the dangerous fights. And that's not what Carolyn is doing. At such a young age, she's already looking for the low-hanging fruit. She's targeting the easy ones.
Wants to be on easy street.
Now, I'm a realist. I think if you made a fight between Carolyn and Terry, Carolyn would win. But I wouldn't begrudge Terry Harper giving her the cold shoulder to wait for the winner of Stephanie Hahn versus Holly Holm. The winner of that fight is just as much a champion as Carolyn Dubois.
I wouldn't hold it against Terry, because if Terry waits for the winner of that fight, that would then force Carolyn to deal with the only other champion at the weight, Turkey's own Elif Turan.
You're supposed to be big and bad. Go fight Elif Turan, the girl who just knocked off Beatrice Ferreira. Let's see how you fare against that fighter. Unfortunately, the way things are looking, after Carolyn makes her MVP debut, later today, the people at MVP might move to make the Harper fight immediately after. And unfortunately, as much as I like Terry, I don't think she wins that fight.
Terry's not one to shy away from a challenge, even one that is ill-advised.
But that's why I have a lot more respect for Terry than what I have for Carolyn. Carolyn just strikes me as an entitled, spoiled brat and an opportunist.
In men's super lightweight news, ahead of his upcoming fight with Teofimo Lopez, Shakur Stevenson also targets Lamont Roach, should he emerge the victor afterwards.
Lamont is coming off that draw with Isaac Cruz over there on the PBC side of things, and I think that given who was at the helm of the promotion, Lamont was very lucky to get that draw because they could have screwed him over. I thought they were going to.
Make no bones about it. I thought that by hook or by crook, Isaac Cruz would get the W, so that when he doesn't and it scored a draw instead, I think Levant should count his lucky stars that they didn't issue him another loss in the column. So he's coming off the draw with Gervonta, and he's coming off the draw with Isaac Cruz, both of which are better than a loss.
Gervonta Davis and Isaac Cruz, at least in some circles, are seen as formidable fighters, not by me, but by other people, so that if neither of them could beat Lamont cleanly, that makes Lamont the ideal opponent for Shakur Stevenson, so that he can go in there and show those scrubs how it's done. Because I don't have a doubt in my mind, Shakur would beat Lamont. He's got to beat Teofimo Lopez first.
Tio and vice versa, stylistically,
stylistically, Tio got to go in and go for broke. He got to go gamble. He got to take some, get some, and that's just the only way to win. If he stays outside of boxes, Shakur gonna pick him apart. Shakur's a polished boxer, he's some of the best feet in the game right now, and he's a defensive-minded fighter, which is very smart. It's hard to hit him. He makes you gamble to hit him, and he's going to be a tough one to deal with. But if Teofimo is willing to gamble to beat him, then Teofimo can definitely make it a really good fight. It's who wants it better.
It's my purview of the fight. For Teofimo Lopez to win it, he has to sort of step out of character, stop being that boxer, stop being that counterpuncher, and be more of a pressure guy. But of course, whenever the keys to victory require the fighter to do something they don't normally do, put forth something they don't normally put forth, I don't normally trust them.
How could I? Fighters have fight patterns. Fighters have base styles, and they usually stay within the borders of those base styles. It's very few fighters that are that adaptable, that malleable, and I don't think that's Teofimo Lopez.
So for Shakur Stevenson, think about that sequence of fights. A potential win over Teofimo Lopez, who singularly is better than anybody Gervonta Davis would have fought, better than anybody Gervonta Davis would have beat. Singularly, Lopez is a big win for Shakur, and then you follow that up with Lamont, the man who arguably beat Gervonta Davis.
Upstaged him.
Upending the guy who upended Gervonta will have to do, since Gervonta Davis himself has no intention of ever sharing the ring with Shakur, or Lamont again for that matter.
Nah, Lamont scared the guy half to death. He's never gonna give him that rematch.
And so Lamont's best bet at getting at a big bag and fighting in a meaningful fight, a significant one, is with Shakur Stevenson. In that scenario, they would be fighting for Shakur's WBO title that he would have theoretically won from Teofimo at 140 pounds, where Levant now campaigns.
In that scenario, theoretically, Turkey LL Sheik would have to be the financier of that fight, and I think he would pay to play. I think he would do it.
And that makes for a respectable sequence of fights that would round out Shakur Stevenson's body of work, his resume. Because of his base style and some people finding it boring, I don't know that he could ever be the face of boxing.
Perhaps not.
I mean, it really does take a unique set of ingredients to become the face, to become the guy whose fights everybody talks about. And Shakur being a pure boxer, that really don't help his situation, but that doesn't mean that he can't be successful, and that doesn't mean that he can't be one of the greats in his own right. Beating Teofimo, then beating Lamont would help that along.
Do you think he beats them?
I do. I mean, what's Teofimo? What's he really? He's a lightweight who moved up in weight, whose power doesn't seem to have carried. And Lamont...
Teofimo is a fighter who's looked bang average, ordinary, with lesser fighters than Shakur, And Lamont, God bless him, while he's good enough to upend a Gervonta Davis and an Isak Cruz, you fight a Shakur Stevenson, that's a different gravy.
So that if Shakur Stevenson can land the both of those fights, and he's already landed one, I think he can win the both of those fights. You may not like his style, you may not like his personality, but I'm not here to evaluate either. I'm here to evaluate the fight, and I think that both of those fights are fights that Shakur can win.
In men's light heavyweight news, Dmitry Bivol eyes March return following successful back surgery. Unified light heavyweight champion Dmitry Bivol, who holds the WBA, WBO, and IBF titles, is targeting a March return following his back surgery. The news comes after his February victory over Artur Beterbiev, where Dmitry secured a majority decision to become the undisputed light heavyweight champion. That win avenged Bivol's lone defeat in their initial encounter, tying their rivalry at 1-1. The two fighters were on course for a trilogy as Bivol vacated his WBC title rather than facing mandatory challenger David Benavidez, who was subsequently elevated to full champion status. Although the back surgery delayed the third fight with Beterbiev, promoter Eddie Hearn recently stated that Bivol will not take an easy fight upon his return. However, Hearn noted that Bivol's return bout could be one of his mandatory defenses.
The first fight back may be a smaller fight than the Artur Beterbiev trilogy, maybe one of his mandatory defenses. He's got quite a few of them. One is Callum Smith. One is Michael Eifert. The WBA, I think, has a mandatory as well. He would have been out of the ring. He won't fight before March, so he would have been out of the ring for a year and would have had a couple of operations.
I think we can rule out Callum Smith as Dmitry's next fight almost immediately because Callum is under orders to defend his WBO interim title against David Morrell. What makes Callum the mandatory in the first place is that he's interim champion.
He's got to defend that. I don't think he's going to be Dmitry's next fight. I think the likelier candidate is Germany's own Michael Eifert, who became the IBF's mandatory challenger, 1 or 2 years ago, when he beat Jean Pascal north of the border in Canada. And he's been waiting for his crack at the apple ever since before Callum or anybody else became mandatory. Michael was there first.
And Michael might be the guy that Dmitry ends up fighting. Michael, if you haven't seen him, is best described as an outboxer, a mover, a jabber. He's not a power guy. He's not an artillery guy. He's not a pressure guy.
He's a cerebral guy. He's an X's and O's guy. So just imagine a guy like that versus Dmitry. Not exactly a scintillating fight, but a necessary evil. He's the mandatory. Moreover, whether you like it or not, Dmitry Bivol needs and deserves a tune-up fight. He had back surgery. He needs an easy one before things get serious again. And ideally,
you want the guy to be 100%, or as close to 100% when they go into a major fight, so that there are no excuses. And to do that, well, he needs a tune-up.
To be as close to 100% as possible. The light heavyweight division needs for Dmitry Bivol to come back, as he is widely perceived as this division's ruler, this division's king.
Unfinished business with his countryman, Artur Beterbiev, which in many ways is still the very best fight to make at this weight. The trilogy, to close it out and end that chapter. In some ways, time is on Dmitry's side because he is a younger man than Artur Beterbiev, though coming off of surgery.
You have to wonder what effect that back surgery may have had on him. We have to see.
And David Benavidez?
While David Benavidez still holds a piece of the light heavyweight crown, I hardly expect him to move back down beyond his upcoming fight with Zurdo Ramirez. After he goes up to cruiserweight, he's not going to boil all the way back down to 175, least of all if he actually beats Zurdo and wins 2 titles at cruiserweight. He's not going to care about the one that he holds at light heavy.
He's a non-factor.
I don't expect David to move back down, but I also don't expect Dmitry to move up. Dmitry was always a very lean light heavyweight. He never had much size to where I'm not sure he goes up to cruiser.
Though I wouldn't bet on it. There are fights right there for him with Callum Smith, with David Morrell, with Imam Katayev, Joshua Buatsi.
There are fights right there. I remember immediately after the back surgery, there were some images released of Dmitry Bivol, and he had lost considerable weight, what looked to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 pounds. And as stated, Dmitry Bivol was already a very lean, light heavyweight, to where I think he lacks the physical dimensions to move up to cruiser that he really doesn't have to.
And I'm not sure that he's going to. I wouldn't bet on it.
So, as far as a Benavidez fight, I think that fight is dead in the water. I do not expect it to happen. What I expect to happen is David is going to fight Zurdo, David is going to beat Zurdo, then he's going to call those guys at 175 to move up to cruiser.
He's going to drop the WBC title he currently holds, at which point it will be back in circulation for Dmitry or Artur or any one of those other guys to fight for it. That's what I expect. David is not coming back down, and I don't think Dmitry is moving up.
So Eddie Hearn appears to still be in the loop and in the know when it comes to Dmitry Bivol, which suggests that their promotional pact is ongoing, that Dmitry may still be a matchroom fighter. And if he is, then we can expect them to be the ones to do his upcoming fight, which could be the Michael Eifert fight. Essentially, a tune-up that doubles as a mandatory.
Dmitry's last 2 or 3 fights have been on Riyadh season shows. The 2 Artur Beterbiev fights and the Malik Zinad fight, I believe it was. I think he also fought Lyndon Arthur on one of Turkey's shows. In any event, it's been a long time since Dmitry fought on a matchroom show, a regular matchroom show. But matchroom must still be in the picture if Eddie Hearn is still fielding questions about that fighter. Otherwise, why ask him? I look forward to Dmitry Bivol's ring return in March, whoever it's against. The division needs him to come back. He is the king of light heavyweights, after all.